A pleasant good evening to you. I'm Shane Seeley and welcome back to Final Score, our weekly sports show where we'll talk about those headlines and the newsmakers of the week. Tonight, we shine a spotlight on the little ones. Knapsack. Well, that's now over. The season of inter-primary school athletics climax today with the finals at the Usain Bolt complex. So have the performances been up to par? We'll find out very soon. Also, the BABA 2023 Premier League season is at the halfway stage with no teams coming close to Pinelands. Can the Pine create history by running the table? And has the season been running properly itself? We'll have expert opinions on both of those topics. But first, Knapsack. West Terrace in the girls, and it was Wesley Hall in the boys. I say that with a smile on my face, and I know you can guess why. They are the champs of Knapsack 2023. They won the two titles earlier today at the Usain Bolt complex. Wesley Hall, well, they claimed the title to be the new kings, amassing 117 points ahead of Luther Thorne with 83. And Bailey's from the east, well, they got 77. Meantime, West Terrace Tigers reclaimed their girls' crown with 103 points ahead of Christchurch Girls with 94 and Hildeskeen third with 75.50. The top athletes, Nathan Phillips of Vauxhall in the boys with 30 points and Kaya Warner Franklin of Trinity Academy in the girls also with 30 points. Joining us live to review the season and to look ahead is former national junior athlete, coach, administrator, and now commentator Michael Jules. Well, of course, you, our viewers, can also make your contributions and answer your questions. You've been doing a lot of that already via social media. You can go to WhatsApp, the number 228-5562, while our Facebook handles are CBC Barbados or cbcnews.bb. You can also call live on 228-5562 as well. Let's go over to Michael now, who has been busy the entire day commentating on some of the performances. And Michael, good to have you on. You've been following the track and field season. And we got to ask, have these performances that you've seen today and for the whole season in general been living up to the standard that you expect of the athletes at this stage?
Well, good evening to you, Shane, and good evening to all the viewers. Shane, I will start by saying I was quite pleased with the performances over the zonal meets. There were 8 zones. Then we had the semi-final and the final today. Now, I think we have to bear in mind that the athletes are coming off COVID, and during that COVID period, I don't believe that many athletes had the opportunity to train. There are very few athletes out of the some 3,000 plus who participate in Knapsack who are affiliated to clubs. And apart from those who might have been doing a little something with the clubs, the majority of the athletes were not doing any serious training. So I am quite pleased with the results that we got over the zonal meets, and indeed today I saw lots of promise coming from the athletes, and I think now that we have got back into regular programming that we'll see the performances improving over time.
We spoke about some of the top athletes. You mentioned the top performers there a bit earlier. Who are some of those stars that really stood out on the track for you?
Well, if we start with the under 13s, and I'm starting here because, as you know, these guys will be transitioning into BSAC. BSAC will be coming up shortly, and I'm sure that the coaches and physical education teachers from the secondary schools have been keenly watching on. A guy called Tyler Gill from Luther Thorne, he's one who was a standout. He won the 100, the 200. He was second in the 400. That's a guy that I'll be keeping my eyes closely on. Then Khalil Bryan from Sharon Primary, a big lad who won the 400 and he was second in the 200. He also placed 4th in the 100 meters. That's another bright spot. In the under 13 girls category, Rajada Hines of George Lamin Primary. She
Right.
won the 100, the 200, and she was second in the long jump. That's another name. Shania Hinkson of Charles F. Broome, tall girl who placed first in the 400, second in the 200. That's another one who I see a lot of promise from. Of course, when we look at the Victor and Victrix Ludorum,
Mm-hmm.
they were outstanding. Kaya Warner Franklin, that's a name that I know will be in the ears, and probably from now schools will be looking at her performances over the next year to see who can grab her. So those are some of the names that immediately stand out. There's a guy called Emmanuel, let's get his name, the distance runner, the guy who won the 800 meters.
Right.
um, he was outstanding as well. I think he's a 4 and 8 guy right now, but I believe once he gets into secondary school, that a guy like Leo Garnes will be looking to grab him as a good middle distance runner. So seeing some potential, Shane.
It's interesting you mentioned schools looking to grab these youngsters because it's almost like it's a scouting program. We hear a lot of that going on in the U.S. And it's interesting to bring that concept here. Before we look at that concept of scouting for talent in the primary schools themselves, we've seen a lot of the familiar names, and a lot of these star athletes are connected to schools who are top performers, schools that are doing their best. They have a consistent sports program. But there are some other schools that we don't hear much mention of. What can you do to close the gap between the sports, or those considered sports schools, and then the others?
It's interesting that you say that, Shane, because when you look at the fact that 49 schools were able to field females into the finals, at least one female out of those 49 schools. Obviously, some had more than one, and 48 in the boys category. I think that's a significant figure. And that's telling me that some of these schools are indeed making the effort. When you look at a school like Good Shepherd, the role of Good Shepherd is, I don't believe they are at 200, but yet still, so I can set the record straight, Good Shepherd, they finished 6th overall in
Okay.
the girls, sorry, and they were 5th overall in the boys. So a school like them,
That's a good, consistent performance there. Well, Michael seemed to have stuck, but I know that he'll be back after the break. We'll take a pause, and when we come back, we'll have your questions as well and your comments
in the
on the
work, you'll
state
get
of junior athletics right here in Barbados. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back in a moment. So we're back with you as we talk about knapsack and the state of junior track and field here in Barbados, and some interesting concepts that Michael was talking about there, where you have schools trying to scout the youngsters for the secondary school, for that BSAT program. I really want you to talk about that, because we know then they're the powerhouses on that side as well. And of course, we have your questions that you've been sending in, your viewers. We'll get to them in a matter of moments. Talk quickly about that concept of scouting and these good programs that we are seeing at the secondary school level.
Well, I can tell you, Shane, I don't have a difficulty with the concept. However, my thing is, if you're going to scout an athlete, that athlete must be academically able, because we've had many cases, and you probably know of some, where athletes were recruited for certain schools and they were not academically ready. so they suffered. The track was good. However, in terms of their, or I should say, the sporting side of the house was good. But in terms of the academics,
We seem to have lost Michael there again, and we hope that we can get him back very quickly to come and finish that comment there, and those questions that we have for him from you as well, like the one that you're seeing on screen there. So Michael, I want you to finish your point first, and then let's get to some of these questions coming in from our viewers.
So I was finishing up by saying I have no difficulty with the scouting, because some schools, they have really good sports programs, and there are opportunities where some of the athletes can go on to receive scholarships. There are other schools where that is unknown.
Non-existent.
Some of the programs, they're not interested in that. So if you can get an athlete going to school where you know at the end of the day the result would be a sports scholarship, I have no difficulty with it. But you must combine the sports along with the academics, so that there is somewhere that they can receive the necessary tutoring and all the other things that will make them a well-rounded athlete and prepare them for when they go overseas on scholarship.
Okay, so let's get these questions that are coming in from our viewers into you. So a question that was up on screen before is why some of the children run barefooted. Can the NSC provide some track shoes for them?
Well, Shane, I competed at the Carifta Games, which is a senior level, barefooted. And it wasn't because I didn't have track shoes. It was because I felt comfortable running barefooted. So there are some kids who may prefer to run barefooted. Yes, it should be encouraged for them to run in track shoes. I think over time they will get to the stage where they get comfy in the track shoes. But I think at the junior level, it's neither here or there for me, really. We've seen good performances barefooted. We've seen good performances in shoes.
Another question for you here. Maybe knapsack should consider running from evening into night to get away from the hot, steaming sun. And I mean, the sun was really, really hot today.
Yes. I endorse that particular comment. However, there are some considerations, such as will the PE teachers agree to coming out with the athletes at that time? Who's going to take responsibility for them? Will the parents take that responsibility, because it's going to be night now? So you're talking about a whole set of pictures, some under 7, some 5 and 6 year olds out in the dark. I don't know if you've been down there
and they should be in bed
where the warm-up area is. So picture a lot of them there. Some might get lost, etc. So these are some factors you have to toy with in terms of having the meet evening into night.
Another question, it just flicked off the screen. Why can't some of the younger runners do the 100 instead of the 50s and the 80-meter dashes?
Okay, so again, dependent on where you are in the world would determine what the governing body for the sport chooses. I know that some younger age groups run 1,500 meters, they run the mile also. But if you got to look at the physiological perspective when it comes to athletes at such a young age doing such longer races. So the governing body for this particular championship is knapsack, and knapsack has determined developmentally
there seem to be some gremlins now in the house. I remember not too long ago, last week I think it was, we had some gremlins with myself and Damien during the news, and they seem to have found their way into final score. But we'll get that sorted out in a matter of seconds. And as I said, he's back with us. Michael,
yes.
I don't know what the gremlins are doing tonight, but they have it in for us. There was one more question there. Knapsack should introduce a pentathlon or heptathlon to prepare the youngsters for that type of event. Your thoughts?
It is interesting that this particular topic should arise because only yesterday Perry Barnett and I was talking about the introduction of multi-events because this is the stage. This is the multi-event stage for these youngsters. However, if I was to do this, I would do it as a separate event, not as part of Knapsack. So I would have a multi-event meet, and it would also provide another opportunity because when you open, you say this is the finale for the primary schools. So unless a primary school athlete is in a club, they will not get the opportunity to compete at any other event. So when you look at it, an athlete will run one time at their zone, one time in the semi-final, one time in the final, and that will be it.
And I was hoping that that would not be it for you as well. But Michael, I don't know what's going on with our connection tonight. It seems to be a bit broken up, but hopefully he'll be on. We have a few more seconds with him because it would be interesting also to hear Michael's thoughts on the club system. The club system has been working for some of the young athletes, keeping them consistent and keeping them in training even coming out of the COVID-19 pandemic. Good to have you back on, Michael.
Yes, please.
And I was going to go with this question to you. While that club system has worked, we see what happens in Jamaica, and it seems they take athletics, it's a culture there, and they take it very seriously from this knapsack age. They get into that professional grooming of the athletes. What needs to be done to make that happen here so that we can produce better athletes going into secondary school and then, of course, coming out to the national level, Carifta, and then further afield?
Yes.
And he's back. Yeah.
Shame.
I hope you heard the question. What do we need to do to get some of these junior athletes into that more professional mindset so it will be a natural progression from primary to secondary, Carifta, and further afield?
Shane, I think you made the point of Jamaica having a culture, not just a culture for track and field, a culture for sports. I don't think we are there yet. I think that is one of the things we need to look at, creating a culture.
And we need to create a culture for a better stream tonight. But Michael, we want to thank you for your contribution tonight. Of course, you have done so much for the athletes here in Barbados, and we salute you for your contribution in that regard. Now we'll take a pause here, but when we come back, we will be looking at the local basketball scene. You can have your questions ready there as well. And it's been a super season for the Pinelands team. They're looking to create history. We'll talk about that and more in the BABA Premier League season when we return. Okay, welcome back. In this final 10 minutes, we'll look at some basketball. Pinelands have gone into overdrive, well, before this halftime break, and by the halftime break of the Cooperators General Insurance 2023 BABA Premier League, they have a 5-0 record, a perfect record. There have been teams before who have also been undefeated at this stage, but the Pine have blown away every opponent comfortably by double-digit margins. Can they sweep the second round as well, and also the playoffs to have an unblemished record this season? To examine the possibility is former junior national basketballer and current administrator Patrick Tannis. Patrick, good to have you back on. We know that you are also pretty happy, smiling after Wesley Hall's win in the boys' side of things. You did your thing in 1978, sure. Patrick. All the way back in 1978, you would believe, is that a year? But you're wearing your basketball cap tonight. It's good to have you on, Patrick.
Thank you. it's been a fun journey to hear about Wesley Hall. Of course, I understand you went to Wesley Hall, and Mark Seal, a cricket superstar back in my era, was at Wesley Hall. But did he tell you that I was the national champion for 60 meters and 100 meters? I was the national champion out of Wesley Hall.
Wow. Well, I didn't know that for sure.
Successive years. Yeah, for 3 successive years, because Wesley Hall had the champion, the national champion.
Because I'll tell you, I didn't know that. And if you're talking about 1978, that's 3 years before my birth. But let's not go there. Put on your basketball hat and let's go. Talk about this Pinelands team. It's a really special season for them. I mean, they've always had that championship pedigree. But this year, they seem to be quite unstoppable.
Well, Shane, we've been building this team for a bit. You see that we won the under 16, we won the under 23, we won the under 19 actually, under 23, and then we started to move the pieces into place. Rashid and Darion. We have Kazarian, he's overseas right now. We have the older heads like Junior, and then we have our star boy, the captain of the Barbados team. Himself, who's there, and so we blended the two. We have Deveron as well joining our club, and we've allowed these youngsters to experience international basketball, the international level, and you can see that they've come back with a sense of how to play at a more competitive level. And it's unfortunate because we wanted to have the other members of the clubs, join us. You'd find actually during the week. The rest of the clubs would come to the Pinelands area and scrimmage and pick up some of the skills that our professional friends who have been working with us for the last 5 years, have been able to impart to us, and alongside us, we've been able to grow this incredible team. I mean, you have Pinelands now winning by more than 60 points in some evenings. So it's something that we've been building. And it's not something by chance. It's very deliberate. We took them to Mount Vernon for the last 3 years. We took some kids to play in the AAU, where I coached that session. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think it's the biggest victory a Barbados team in basketball history has had, because we defeated the French junior national team. And so, I mean, these are victories that are there for us. We have about 5 players overseas right now from Pinelands. And we want to spread this ability throughout the national consensus about basketball, because basketball is a sport that we can dominate in globally. I mean, sorry to do this, but I remember when we started to talk about Derek Wilkie and a few friends of ours, we started to talk about having a musical superstar. Rihanna was in our church, and we kind of were behind the scenes working on that. And today we have a musical superstar. My brother, we can have a basketball superstar very soon, and that's the plan here, to have a basketball superstar. And unfortunately, in basketball, Barbados is the only Caribbean country, and you won't believe this, the only Caribbean country that does not have an NBA player is Barbados. This is not right.
But you say that,
talent that we have.
You say that, I'm still not surprised. But let's speak about some of these names that you mentioned who have been doing professional things. Rashid is one, Rashid Maynard, and then Rashid Hall. They both played in the Caribbean Professional League earlier this year and are both playing for Pinelands. Does that exposure have anything to do with their level of success that we've seen so far?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, those two guys went and dominated in Jamaica. And the thing is that I want to stick this in here. We were on board with the Jamaica experience, and we were helping plan that with our friend Wayne Dawkins, and we wanted to have some of that here in Barbados. Called meetings and the coaches would not turn up, so we had to move it to Jamaica, and those two guys have gone there, and they were a part of the twice winning now successful team, and MVPs on that team. And let me tell you, those teams in Jamaica are some of the most in the Caribbean region right now, some of the most accomplished teams, because they have NBA G League players and so on playing on those teams. So those guys have upped the game and brought it back to Barbados, and you can see the results.
Okay, now come back to what we were speaking about. You mentioned that Barbados is the only Caribbean country that does not have a representative in the NBA. And I'm really not surprised, I understand the part that COVID played in pegging back some of the outstanding performers that we had on the local basketball scene, looking for glory overseas. But as I mentioned to Michael a short while ago, it's a culture that I don't think that we've created here. I remember scrimmaging when I was young, scrimmaging with some players that they went as far as going to the US and trying to make it, but never did. What is the problem with the transition? Why are we not seeing the transition that some of the other Caribbean countries have been seeing?
I think that you have to see what you do with everything else. I mean, Barbados has had some of the most amazing academic minds. We've had some of the best sprinters on the planet, you know. And we've also had some of the best basketballers. Your question is very pointedly right, because what did we do in the other areas that we didn't do with basketball? And that's the follow-up, that's the follow-through, that's the consistency, that's the respect, that's the, you know. In Barbados, you got people that, I mean, my colleague that played junior national basketball with me, Alonzo Grant, one of the best talents personally I've seen on the planet. He had a complete game. Yet when Lonnie went to school, he came back, there was really no record of who is Alonzo Grant to this day. You know, we don't know the greatness of that young man. And that's the problem that we've had. We've had the talent, but we've not had the administrative support. And I don't want to blame any persons or anything like that. That's not what this is about. But it's to draw on the talent of the persons who have come through the experience to assist the BABA in making sure that we have the most amazing blend of talent and minds and professionals who have graduated from the sport as players, but who are willing to assist in the support of the sport at this stage. For managers and leaders out there in the business sector who can come back and advise the BABA how to get this done.
You got 10 seconds to answer this one. You have 10 seconds to answer this one. One name for the NBA in the next 5 years.
One name.
One name.
I'd say
very
three. Rashid. And we have a guy called Carl Thorpe. That young man is amazing, right?
All right.
Kazarian. We've got a few. And there's also Michael Tannis.
Well, we'll look out for them. Patrick, thank you for your time. Of course, we'll continue to follow the season, and it looks like Pineland will be doing it, so we'll watch their progress as well. Thank you for your time.
Thank you as well. God bless.
Well, we'll be back to wrap up final score in the final 60. Okay, let's go with the final 60. The National Junior Athletic Championships goes into day 2 tomorrow. So there's more sporting action there at the Usain Bolt. And the final session on Sunday as well. So you can check that out. Also for you basketball lovers, the season continues this weekend with the start of the 3-on-3 Premier League competition tomorrow at 6 p.m. Community College is the venue. And there's some more sporting action on the local scene. There's a BFA women's triple header tomorrow from 4 p.m. with the men's triple header that's on Sunday. All of that at the BFA turf. And just a reminder, the West Indies, they're on the back foot, yes, in the second test, but you can follow the match on Cricket Info for the scores and the analysis. Well, that's a wrap for this week's Final Score. We'll be back next Friday with more on Final Score. Have a good weekend.